Hello class. Today we're beginning the week of May 4th, and this is our first lesson. This week we're going to have one lesson and we'll have one assessment. So today we're going to talk about subtracting polynomials. But first let's review what we did with adding polynomials. If you remember, for adding polynomials, what we did was we first had to look inside the parentheses and make sure it's addition. If it wasn't addition, we would change subtraction to addition, next number to its opposite. Next, we would look between the parentheses and make sure it was addition. Well, in addition, it always was. Okay, today that's going to change. And then last but not least, we combine like terms. We put together things that are alike. Okay, so that's what we're kind of looking at for adding. So let's talk about subtracting. First thing that we have to know is that, one, we are learning about subtracting polynomials. But to subtract polynomials, what it really is subtraction is the opposite of addition. So to subtract a polynomial, you need to be able to find its opposite. So let's see if we can do that. To find its opposite, we know if I were to give you the number 5 and say find its opposite, well, we would know that that would be a negative 5. Okay, because all I did was I took this 5 and I multiplied by negative 1. Well, that's basically what we're doing when we want to find a negative, is we need to be able to find the opposite of each of these polynomials. So if we take this monomial right here, okay, 8x to the third power, y to the fourth, z to the second. In order to find its opposite, all I'm really going to do is take it and multiply it by negative 1. Okay, so if I were to take this and multiply by negative 1, we would get negative 8, x to the third power, y to the fourth power, z to the second. That's the opposite. Just like the opposite of 5 is negative 5, the opposite of this monomial is the negative version. Now, if you have a binomial, it's a little bit different. But we're still going to do the same thing. We need to multiply this binomial by negative 1. But this time for a binomial, we're going to use the distributive property to pass out the negative 1 to the negative 3x to the fourth, and pass out the negative 1 to the 8x squared. So when I multiply the negative 1 by the negative 3x to the fourth, I just get 3x to the fourth power, plus, and then I pass the negative 1 to the 8x, and I end up with negative 8x squared. 8x squared. So this is one way of looking at it. The other way of writing this would be 3x to the fourth minus 8x squared. Both of those are the same thing. But what we did was we took the monomial or the binomial and we just multiplied by negative 1. Okay? So what if we had a trinomial? Do we do the same thing? Yes, we do. We're just going to take this and multiply by negative 1. Now the first thing I'm going to do, now that I put this trinomial in parentheses, I need to make sure everything is plus. Okay, so I change this minus to a plus, next number to its opposite. Now it makes it a little easier to multiply through by negative 1. So if I multiply the 9a to the 6th, b to the fourth by negative 1, I'm going to end up with negative 9a to the 6th, b to the fourth. Plus, and I pass out the negative 1 to the a to the fourth, b to the second, and I end up with negative a to the fourth, b to the second. And now that I've got this negative 1 here, and I'm going to pass it out to the other negative 1, okay, the negative 1 times negative 1 actually gives me a positive 1. Okay, so another way of writing this particular trinomial would be negative 9a to the 6th, b to the fourth, plus, not plus there, but minus a to the fourth, b to the second, and then plus 1. Either one of those would be acceptable, and either one would be acceptable on your homework assignment today. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is, how do I subtract polynomials then? Now that I know how to find the opposite of a monomial or a binomial or a trinomial, how do I subtract polynomials? Okay, so here's our first problem. Now, we go back to those same steps we did with addition. We first look inside our parentheses. So we look inside this parenthesis and determine, do I have any minuses? And yes, I do. So I change this minus to a plus, the 3 to a negative. Then I look at the other set of parentheses and I do the same thing. I look all the way through and I find that I've got one more. Okay, so that's step 1. Look inside the parentheses and make sure everything is plus. Okay, the second thing is look in between the parentheses. Well, in addition of polynomials, this was always a plus sign. So we would just then combine like terms. But with subtraction, we got to do something a little different. We now have to change this subtraction to addition, and really in front of this polynomial there is a 1 there that I'm going to change to a negative. Okay, and that's what I've got to distribute. I've got to distribute that throughout the entire polynomial. So just like finding the opposite of the polynomials on the previous slides, we have to do the same thing here. So we pass it out to this 3x squared, pass the negative 1 out to the 8x, and pass the negative 1 out to the negative 4. Okay, so when we do that, we end up with 5x squared plus 2x plus negative 3 plus, okay, and now when I take the negative 1, I multiply by the 3x squared, I get negative 3x squared plus, and then I multiply the negative 1 by the 8x to get negative 8x plus, and I pass the negative 1 out to the negative 4 to get a positive 4. So now we have an addition of polynomial problem. So everything in the first set of parentheses is good. Everything in the second set is good. It's plus in the middle. So now my parentheses drop away and I combine like terms. So I've got 5x squared here and I've got a negative 3x squared here, which come together to make 2x squared. Plus I've got the 2x and the negative 8x to go together, which will give me a negative 6x plus, and then the negative 3 and the positive 4 gives me a 1. So we end up with 2x squared plus negative 6x plus 1, or 2x squared minus 6x plus 1 would also be the same thing. So let's try another one, then I'll have you try one on your own. So here we go. Now this one's a little bit trickier. Got a lot to it. So step number 1, we look inside the parentheses. Make sure everything is plus. So I see one I got to change. Okay, in the second set of parentheses, I've got to change 2 things. Okay, so now I go to this set in the middle. I change this minus to a plus, and everything in the next set of parentheses I flip to its opposite, because that's what multiplying by negative 1 really does. So this becomes a negative 7b squared, this becomes a positive b, and this becomes a positive 1. Now I just combine like terms. So I've got a 1b squared here and a negative 7b squared here, which gives me a negative 6b squared. Plus, and now those go away. Now I have a 4b and a b, which gives me 5b. Plus, and then I've got a negative 1 and a 1, which give me 0. Okay, so another way of writing this then would be a negative 6b squared plus 5b, and that would be the most correct way of writing it. So let's see if you can do one on your own. Pause the video and answer this question. Okay, so let's see how you did. Okay, step number 1, look inside the parenthesis. First one is good, second one is not. So I change this one, change this one. Okay, then I look into the middle. I change this subtraction to addition, and then everything in the next set of parentheses to its opposite. So this 4 becomes negative, the c squared becomes positive, the 1 also becomes positive. Now I combine like terms. So I've got a c cubed here and another c cubed here. So c cubed and then negative 4c cubed gives me negative 3c cubed plus, then I've got a 2c squared and a regular c squared, which gives me 3c squared plus, and then a 3 and a 1 gives me 4. And I don't need to change anything here. So that's all there is, okay? So you just got to remember those steps. Step 1, look inside the parentheses. Make sure everything is plus. Then look in between the parentheses. There's a minus, change it to change the subtraction to addition, and then everything in the next set of parentheses, distribute the negative 1 to it, which flips everything to its opposite. Okay? So that's how we do them if they're horizontal. But you can also subtract polynomials in a vertical format. Okay, so all you have to do then is write the second polynomial below the first, lining up the like terms. So let's see if we can do 1 or 2 of these, and then we'll be ready for our assignment. Okay, so in this one right here, what we want to do is we want to line up everything. Okay, so this first one here, we would write it down as 2n squared minus 4n plus 9. Okay, and then what it will look like on your assignment is you'll have a set of parentheses there with a minus in front of it. And now we just need to line up everything. So this 6n squared, it's going to go underneath the other n squared. So 6n squared minus, and then the 7n goes underneath the 4n, and then the 5 goes underneath the 9. Okay? And so the vertical problem will look like this. Okay, so our steps are still the same. You still look at this first set, okay, and kind of imagine it being in parentheses. Make sure everything is plus. So I change this subtraction to addition and the 4n to a negative. Then I go to the second set, and I do the same thing. I have a minus there I need to change. Now I go to the one that's in the middle. The one here is on the outside. So I change it to addition, and then everything in the next set that's right past it, you change it to its opposite. So the 6 turns negative, the 7 turns positive, and the 5 turns negative. Now we're ready to combine like terms. The only advantage in this is that the like terms are already lined up with each other, so it makes it a little easier that way. Okay, and it doesn't really matter which end you start with. So I'm going to actually start here just like we normally do in a regular problem. 9 take away 5 gives us 4, and then a plus. Then a negative 4n and a positive 7n gives us 3n, plus. And then a 2n squared and a negative 6n squared gives me a negative 4n squared. That's all there is to subtracting polynomials vertically. Okay, so let's try one that's a little bit tougher. Okay, this one right here. Okay, so this one, we start off with the 6a to the 4th minus 3a to the 2nd minus 8. Okay, and then parenthesis minus parenthesis. Now this negative 2a to the 4th, where does it go? Well, it's going to go underneath this a to the 4th. So negative 2a to the 4th. Okay, but what about this 7? Where is it going to go? It's going to go all the way underneath the 8. Okay, so we end up with a space there, and that's okay. Okay, so when you're lining things up, you got to make sure that you line them up according to their kind. Okay, so now we go through and do our subtraction, or changing our subtractions. So in this first one, I've got to subtract a change and another subtract a change. Okay, in this second one, I don't have any subtractions to change because I don't mess with that negative in front of the 2. Okay, so now I change this one in the middle, okay, which is this one right here. I change that subtraction to addition, and then everything in that next set flips to its opposite. So now this 2a to the 4th is going to change to a positive, and this 7 is going to change to a negative. And now I just add like terms. So negative 8 and negative 7 will give me a negative 15. Okay, and then plus the negative 3a just comes on down for the ride. Oops, negative 3a squared there. Okay, and then the 6a to the 4th and the 2a to the 4th actually become 8a to the 4th. So another way of writing this then would be 8a to the 4th minus 3a squared minus 15. And both of those would be acceptable. Okay, so let's review. Okay, so for addition, we never had to worry about that minus in the middle, but with subtraction we do. So our first step is still the same. Look inside the parentheses and make sure everything is addition. If not, change the subtraction to addition, next term to its opposite. That step doesn't change. Okay, the next step, okay, look between the parentheses. Make sure it's addition. If it's not, change the subtraction to addition in each term in the next polynomial, that next set of parentheses, to its opposite. You have to distribute out that negative. Okay, and then last but not least, combine like terms. So what you're going to do in your assignment today is something very similar. Okay, all you're going to do is you're going to subtract some polynomials for me. Very simple. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I want to kind of look at this so that you understand the form that I want you to type it into in the form. Okay, okay, so this is our format that I need. Okay, so in this first one, we'll just kind of do the first one together, and then maybe one that has one of the exponents. Okay, so we got 7a plus 2, and then minus 5a plus 1. So the first set's good, the second set's good, but the minus in the middle is not. So then that 5 is going to turn negative, and the 1 is going to turn negative. So now I combine like terms. So 7a and negative 5a give me 2a plus, and then the 2 and the negative 1 give me a 1. So when you type this into the form, you should not have any spaces there. It should just be 2a plus 1. No spaces. Okay, so let's look down at one of these bottom ones real quick, and you'll notice here I forgot one of my parentheses on this one. Okay, so let's just kind of do this one, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so in this one, the first set looks good. The second set, though, doesn't. So I need to change a few things here. Okay, and then I come here and change the minus to a plus. The 6 turns negative. The 2 now turns positive, and the 7 turns positive. So now when I combine like terms, I've got negative 9x squared and negative 6x squared, which is going to give me a negative 15x squared, plus, and then a 7x and a 2x is going to give me a 9x, plus, and a 7 and a 7 will give me 14. So the way you would type this one into our form, and we'll write this one right above it, is you would write negative 15, okay, x caret 2, no space, plus 9x, no space, plus 14. And that's how I want you to type it into the form. That's also how I will have you type it into the test when we get to that point on the second activity. Okay, so hopefully you understand subtracting polynomials. It's really simple. Just go back over the steps real quick. Okay, step 1, look inside the parentheses, make sure everything is addition. If not, change it. Then look in the middle of the parenthesis. Make sure it's addition. If it's not, change it to subtraction, and then distribute out the -1 to everything in the next set of parentheses. And then last but not least, combine like terms. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Until next time, talk to you later.